Hey guys, so I am a proud dad this morning, and I just have to boast a little bit about my favorite child, my new favorite child, and that would be Scar. Now, a lot of you have asked about the barn cats, and I I never see them, so I hardly report on them. But unfortunately, a couple of months ago, Mufasa stopped coming around. Now, I have my theory on what happened. Emily has hers. Let's just say hers is less violent. Anyway, so Scar is still here, and Scar, I really didn't give him enough credit because he spends his days, just turn the camera around here, right up there, relaxing under the solar panels. You see him right there? That's his hangout, and other than when he comes down for dinner, when we feed him, that's where I always see him. And so I really thought he was just a moocher. But this morning, I came outside, and right next to his food bowl was a little remnant of an animal. I first thought it was a bird, and then I thought it was like a mouse's butt. And then I looked closer, and there were big gopher teeth. So I could not be more ecstatic. Like, seriously, it made my morning. I don't love finding dead animals, but when it's a gopher and I didn't have to trap it or do anything for it, yeah, that makes me very happy. So it's the beginning of a new week. Today's Monday here at this moment, and we have a week coming up that is going to be perfect for getting a lot done out here because it doesn't even get into the 60s. I think it's like all in the, it might get a little bit in the lower 60s, but mostly the 50s. We've got overcast, cloudy days, a little bit of rain scheduled for Thursday, which is totally fine with me now because it's not going to be a ton. But that just means cool weather to get out here and do all this work. I'm not sure if you just saw that. I was giving you a sneak peek. I was able to get the woodwork done on the dormer, and I'm really happy about it. So I'm going to throw in some footage. I did this a couple days ago. I'm going to throw in some footage right here of that, and then we'll come back and I'll give you a closer up view, and we'll talk about what we're going to be doing today to get this cottage more toward completion and definitely toward a point where I can start putting the roof on. Okay, there it is. So we are one step closer to being able to roof this thing. And in the last video, I showed you kind of my little test run here with the thatch roof. And I had some questions about the roof that I just wanted to address really quick before we get started on today's projects. So a lot of you were wondering why I took the hedge trimmer to this to give it a straight across look rather than leaving it kind of messy and just kind of messy. And that is because that is how the English cottages look. Most of the ones that I've seen, they have very tightly shorn thatch. It's not messy at all. It's very clipped and just perfect. Now there could be reasons for that when people are putting on real actual reeds as thatch rather than this, fire retardant, whatever it's called. But that's the look. And I think maybe a lot of us here in the United States who aren't used to seeing thatched cottages, I know I wasn't before I started researching for this, we tend to see thatch on tropical type buildings. And on tropical type buildings, it is messy, and that's just the look of the tropical feel that you'd go for. When I do my tropical stuff in the tropical garden, it's going to have a messier palm thatch roof. So another question I get is why I haven't put any like in the joints and all the plywood, why haven't I put joints to protect the ends? And that's simply because this entire thing is going to be covered with a membrane or a waterproof liner, whatever you want to call it, underlayment. And so none of that's going to be exposed to water ever. And you can see I'm not a professional cutter, builder. Definitely not a math person. I'm an artist, so math in school and now, not my strong point. People were suggesting putting metal flashing, and yes, I will be putting metal flashing around the chimney to just protect where the wood and the chimney meet. That is a necessity. And again, maybe you'd have to put protection between all the joints of the plywood for a home. This is not a home. As I say all the time, this is a chicken coop / potting shed. Now, I know it doesn't look like one, but that's just because I'm crazy and eccentric. But I don't have to have it as perfectly, it's not, there's no code when it comes to, putting things between plywood as there would be if you were building a house. I'm sure there's tons of codes that you'd have to stick to. Now on to the chimney. In the last video, I was lamenting on, I had to do this before the roof. And for the most part, I probably still do. However, I have changed my mind on what I'm going to put on here. This was going to be stamped concrete, and I was talking to you guys how I was worried that this corner was not perfectly sharp and that would give a weird appearance. Now, a lot of you said that wouldn't matter on a cottage garden because those are old, and yes, that's probably true. Some of you said to put cobblestone, faux cobblestone instead of brick, and that was my original plan. But then when I went back and looked, most of the cottages of this style are brick. Not to mention, I think brick's going to be easier because you just got straight lines. I'm not going to have to draw each and every one or use the stamp. This is the stamp that I bought. It's made out of like silicone or something. And you can see the texture and kind of the way it is done. And I really thought that would be the easiest way to get this done. I should have done my research a little bit better because I did that this morning. And it's a lot more involved than simply troweling on cement and stamping it. Apparently, it needs to be a certain kind of cement that is pretty expensive. And you need some kind of adhesive paint that you put on first onto the scratch coat that's there. Then you put on that special concrete or cement. And then you have to spray constantly with this anti-sticking agent so that the mold doesn't get stuck to the concrete that you're stamping. Well, after I've bought all that stuff, it's going to be more expensive than the pieces of brick, the brick tiling things that Emily found that I told you about in the last video. So now I'm thinking that's going to be the way to go. So this is it right here. They look like brick, but they're super thin and flexible. They go on with adhesive, and then you grout them to look like mortar. So I need to find out of this package here that I think was $50, how big of an area that will cover, and then kind of do the math, and not just the math, but the amount of work that's going to be involved. I've tiled a shower before, believe it or not. And so that would be a similar thing with the little spacers, and you'd use adhesive instead of the whatever I put on there. It's been years. But so there's a very good likelihood that you will see me putting those on the chimney. So I'm thinking maybe I will do just a small section to see if it's going to work, if I'm going to like the look of it, and then make my decision from there. Oh, and one more negative about the stamped concrete is then I would have to paint it and not get in the grout lines or mortar lines, whatever you want to call them. So there's a lot more steps involved, plus I have to buy the paint for that. So today I'm going to be finishing the stucco on top of the chimney, and there in the peak of the roof. I don't have the spacers to get started on the trial of this, so that'll have to wait maybe tomorrow. Also up here on the dormer, I could not get the stucco to stick on the upside down part there under those arches on either side. And so I think what I'm gonna do, and this is where you can see I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. I'm gonna get that spray foam that kind of puffs up and hardens, and then I'm going to kind of stick that in there and then carve it with a knife to that shape of the little arches on each side of the dormer, and then paint over that. And in that small of a space up there on the roof, I don't think you'll even notice it. This is all about smoke and mirrors. When you don't have the perfect knowledge of construction, you just do what you got to do. It's a chicken coop, not a house. All right, it's the next day. Yesterday was really productive. I got a lot done. I got all of the scratch coat finished on the entire cottage, and today I will be starting with the final coat on the left, whatever's left, the dormer, the peak. But I also got a lot done here in the cottage garden. So I added all of these stumps here all the way to about right there. I've gotten some comments about the design, or questions really, and I didn't really have a design going into this. I've done it all kind of as I go, and that was really the plan, to do this very organically as it kind of came together. Putting in these stumps, I didn't know that there would be 2 rows right there just like that, but I kind of have to go with the lay of the topography, the, you know, how the slopes fall. And so it ended up that was a steep slope there, so I had to put in kind of a little more terracing. But now as you look across, all of that terracing is finished except for a little bit up in the vegetable area. So today I'm going to be putting the final stucco on the dormer, the peak of the roof, and unfortunately now I do think I've made a decision on the chimney. I really think, I mentioned this yesterday, but maybe not. I wasn't 100% sure. I am going to, I think now, do those thin brick tiles. I think cost-wise and labor-wise, it's actually going to be less of both of those. But I can feel us getting closer now to the end of this. I really can. I don't think, once we get started with the roof, I don't think it will take all that long. Of course, that's the story of my life. Here's a view from this side. Also yesterday, I got most of that agave out. This is what's left. So the thing with agave, which kind of makes me afraid to plant any more of it, but I guess if I stay on top of it, every time the agave gets too long, you can see over here, this is that one that I had left to cut off. When it gets too long, it lays on the ground and forms roots. The next one lays down on top of it and forms roots around that one into the ground. So it was just a mass of this netting of fibrous roots that I would have taken a taproot over that. And as you can see, I've got the main stump left. So all the pieces were coming out in all directions like spokes on a tire. And each one of them had rooted themselves into the ground. But in getting all these stumps in, I was then able to finally get that other tree stump out, fill in that hole, and then smooth this all out. So I have a nice, fairly flat, large terrace actually. All right, so enough talking. I got to get busy for today. I'm going to get started on the stucco, and then I'll probably have some more work to do on next level gardening. I'm going to be putting in drip this week, or probably this weekend. So I've got to kind of get started on that and at least get the control box in and pipes laid. So I've got a full day. Minor correction, I can't stucco the dormer until the woodwork is painted. So I'm going to stucco the chimney first and then paint all the rest of the woodwork that's left. And then if there's time to stucco again some more today, then I'll do that. Otherwise, that'll be tomorrow. All right, with this second coat of stucco, I'm able to sharpen these corners up a lot actually, which isn't as big a deal with the tile pieces as it was with stamping the concrete. However, in testing some of those bricks, they are made of clay apparently. That's like a flexible thing. But if the surface behind it's not even, you know, and let's say I had to put a ladder up against the chimney or something to crawl up there, it could snap the tile if it wasn't really level. So especially on corners, I'm gonna try to make them as sharp as possible so I can really have a nice surface to put these bricks on. All right, it's the next day and I got quite a bit done yesterday. I don't know why I always film these in the morning. The backlight from the sun over the cottage is not great, but I'll try to remember that. I got the base coat on all the woodwork on this wall here, but what I'm super excited about is I got the final coat on most of the chimney. Take a look. I just have the back and the top to do. Now I was worried about not having sharp edges on the chimney, but I was able to correct most of that with the final stucco coat. Look at that, look at those sharp edges. Wasn't easy, took some time, but I did it. I also started digging out this oleander, and the roots aren't so bad as far as toughness. I mean, I can chop right through them with the shovel, but there's a lot of them. And I think it was planted in a former rock quarry, because rocks galore. So today I'm not going to get a ton of work done on the cottage because today is filming day for Next Level Gardening. I'm going to be planting the cottage garden and then doing a video on what the garden jobs are for May, because we're already in May. I can't believe it. So I'm going to get to that, and then if I get some work done on the cottage today, then I'll definitely let you in on that. All right, it's a few days later, and like I said, I took some time off of this and the cottage because I needed to film a bunch of videos for Next Level Gardening. I did get a lot done. You can see all of the flower beds have mulch and drip. And up here, I flattened the next area out. Well, all these logs are new, and they'll continue up. And then that will leave this flat area here. Here's a little better view. So we're above the two flower beds. You can see the path coming down here. So there'll be logs here and along the edge over there. And then the espaliered apple trees will be along the front and along the edge, just to make a nice living fence. And I'm thinking this year, this is where the pumpkin patch is gonna be. And then across the way is our one last bit of succulents. This is some kind of aloe, and then that will be taken out. And then the rest of this will be the vegetable patch over here with the berries behind. I know, it's food time. Just let me get done with these people and I will be with you shortly. Also yesterday, I did a couple things. I actually did work on the cottage a bit. I'm gonna show you in a minute because it's a pretty big change. But yesterday we actually got a couple dump trucks full of fill dirt to continue this berm all the way around here. And that's going to be a berm that will hold in our pond area, the start of our water catchment. And then it will also allow us to plant trees along that berm, which will block out all of the neighbors, but still we'll be able to see those mountains. But now let me show you the coolest part. So I thought I would start just putting up a few bricks to see how it worked. And one brick led to 2 and 3 and 4, and it just kept going until I ended up with the whole box of bricks empty and this portion of the chimney finished. Well, other than the grout. So you can see it's got all the texture of real brick. The grout will be a darker color. This is just the stucco showing through, and it really makes it look like Santa Claus is coming to town down the chimney. It's just very red and white. I don't like that. In fact, I may end up darkening some of the brick. We'll see once the grout lines are darker. I think I'll be really happy with the look once it's done. And it's so much easier than stamped concrete. So anyway, it's been a long enough video already. I got lots of jobs planned for this new week, and I'll take you with me. So in fact, I'll probably start filming those today. See you next time.